world as we know it ended in fire. 76 million years ago, an asteroid, no larger than a city, struck with the force of unimaginable fury, igniting a chain reaction that obliterated life across continents. Volcanoes raged, skies darkened, oceans churned with acid rain, and forests, once alive with the roar of dinosaurs, were silenced forever. It is difficult to imagine a day when the rulers of Earth, the dinosaurs, vanished in the blink of geological time. And yet, vanish they did. Bones turned to stone, footprints faded beneath layers of ash, and a world that had been vibrant with colossal life became, almost overnight, a tomb dawn. And yet, amid this cataclysm, life persisted. Small mammals, creatures often overlooked, scurried beneath fallen trees, burrowed into the earth, and clung to existence in the shadows of extinction. They were neither majestic nor powerful. They were subtle, adaptive, and resilient. In the ruins of a fallen age, they became the silent witnesses of survival. How did these fragile creatures endure when the titans of their world could not? Here, science meets mystery, for while we can trace fossils and carbon layers, the question of why some species survived and others did not brushes against the very limits of human understanding. Was it sheer luck? Or did evolution, in its enigmatic wisdom, prepare certain life forms for the rebirth of a shattered Earth? Imagine the first light piercing a sky still heavy with soot, illuminating a landscape that seemed lifeless. Yet life stirred. Ferns unfurled their fronds, delicate flowers pushed through the ash, and insects emerged from hidden refuges. These small, often invisible actors laid the groundwork for what was to come, a world slowly healing, recalibrating, reinventing itself. The Earth, it seemed, was not merely a passive stage for life's drama. It was an active participant, nudging evolution, guiding adaptation, and orchestrating a recovery that was as astonishing as it was unpredictable. Science allows us to reconstruct this recovery in vivid detail. Fossil evidence charts the rise of mammals, creatures that, before the extinction, were modest in size and scope, now expanding into niches once dominated by dinosaurs. They diversified rapidly. Some became nocturnal hunters, others grazers, and a few, the ancestors of modern primates, climbed into trees and explored new ways of living. Geological data reveals shifts in climate, ocean currents, and vegetation that created opportunities for innovation and expansion. Carbon isotopes in ancient soil layers tell stories of changing diets, migrations, and survival strategies. Every fossil, every footprint, is a testament to the persistence of life against overwhelming odds. Yet, as much as science can tell us, there remain gaps filled by speculation. How did ecosystems reorganize so swiftly after such devastation? Were there hidden refuges, pockets of life that harbored the seeds of tomorrow? Could there have been interactions, subtle or profound, that accelerated recovery? Some paleontologists suggest that the very extinction that ended the age of giants created a vacuum, an open canvas on which evolution could paint anew. Others imagine more mysterious forces at play, cycles of resilience embedded in the planet itself, rhythms of destruction and renewal beyond our current understanding. It is here, at the boundary of evidence and imagination, that the story becomes truly cinematic, where the cold logic of data meets the awe of possibility. Visualize a forest emerging over millennia, each tree, each fern, a symbol of rebirth. Streams, once polluted with ash, clear and shimmer with life. Birds, descendants of small theropods, chirp in the new canopies. Predators evolved to hunt new prey, while prey species developed defenses unimagined in the age of dinosaurs. The balance of life, once top-heavy and fragile, becomes intricate, delicate, and enduring. Life, as if guided by an invisible hand, reorganizes itself with astonishing complexity. In this post-extinction world, the pace of evolution quickens. Mammals experiment with size, shape, and behavior in ways that would have been impossible under the shadow of giant reptiles. The ancestors of whales take to the water. Hoofed animals roam the plains. Apex predators, once unchallenged, now compete with cunning mammals that learn to adapt, cooperate, and outthink their environment. The Cenozoic, the so-called Age of Mammals, is born, a testament to life's capacity for reinvention. Here, the ancient Earth whispers its secrets. Survival is not merely about strength. It is about resilience, creativity, and the ability to seize opportunity in chaos. But this story is not only about animals. The extinction reshaped the very chemistry of the Earth. Carbon cycles shifted. Oceans, once dominated by giant marine reptiles, teemed with new species of fish and invertebrates. Plant life diversified, altering the composition of the atmosphere and setting the stage for climates that would support increasingly complex ecosystems. Life and planet co-evolve, each influencing the other in subtle feedback loops. The Earth, scarred but not broken, emerges as a system of extraordinary dynamism, demonstrating that catastrophe and creativity are entwined in the grand tapestry of natural history. As viewers, we are invited to confront paradoxes. Destruction and creation, loss and opportunity, death and survival. These forces are inseparable in the story of life. The dinosaurs' demise was absolute, yet it was also a beginning. The mammal's rise was unassuming, yet it set the stage for the eventual emergence of humans. Evolution, it seems, is both ruthless and generous, cruel and cunning, a force that humbles even as it inspires. In this balance, we glimpse something greater, a universe capable of both annihilation and renewal, a cosmos that cultivates life even in its darkest hours. And yet, questions linger. How exactly did life navigate the treacherous path from extinction to flourishing? What subtle interactions, invisible to the fossil record, shaped the destiny of species? Could understanding these ancient transitions illuminate not only the past but the future, our future in a rapidly changing world? Here, science provides clues, but speculation and wonder fill the spaces in between. It is in these spaces that the mind stretches, imagining the infinite ways a planet can reinvent itself, where curiosity meets reverence, and where the story of Earth becomes a mirror for the mysteries of life itself. As the Cenozoic unfolds, the narrative shifts from devastation to possibility. Life, once shadowed by giants, begins to explore new dimensions, both in behavior and form. Forests reclaim the land, rivers carve new paths, and the first complex communities of mammals appear. The stage is set for evolution to accelerate, for intelligence, adaptability, and innovation to emerge from the humblest of beginnings. The question that opens this journey, the question of survival, transformation, and destiny remains. How did life evolve in this new post-dinosaur world? And in seeking answers, we are compelled to look not only to fossils, but to the very patterns of nature, to the subtle rhythms that govern growth, adaptation, and change. In this awakening after extinction, Earth itself becomes a character, a living, breathing force guiding the drama of life. The story of the Cenozoic is not just about mammals or landscapes. It is about resilience, about the relentless drive to continue, to adapt, and to flourish. It reminds us that life, in all its forms, is both fragile and tenacious, fleeting and eternal. As the curtain rises on this new age, we are drawn into a narrative that is at once scientific and poetic, factual and speculative, a tale that challenges us to contemplate the profound mystery of existence, and to wonder at the extraordinary journey from the ashes of extinction to the dawn of a vibrant, living world. From the shadows of extinction emerged the first whisper of a new age. Small, timid, often nocturnal creatures that had survived the cataclysm now faced a world wide open, a realm once dominated by titans. Their ancestors had scuttled and burrowed beneath the feet of dinosaurs, living lives defined by caution and stealth. But in the absence of these colossal rulers, opportunity was no longer a whispered possibility. It became a tangible, irresistible force. For the first time in millions of years, mammals could experiment, adapt, and expand into every niche Earth offered. Consider the contrast: a shrew-like creature, no larger than a walnut, venturing cautiously along a fallen log, while just a heartbeat earlier, a T-Rex had thundered across the same landscape, unchallenged and supreme. This is a story of extremes, a planet shifting from domination by overwhelming scale to a theater of subtler, yet astonishing, intelligence and adaptability. Fossil evidence reveals these humble mammals multiplying and diversifying at a pace unprecedented in Earth's history. Their forms were as varied as their behaviors: burrowers, climbers, swimmers, and later, even flyers. Each iteration a response to the fresh and demanding canvas of post-extinction Earth. Birds, too, emerged as silent participants in this evolutionary renaissance. Descendants of small theropod dinosaurs, they carried the spark of flight into the new skies. They were smaller, lighter, more agile, weaving between the branches and exploiting niches previously unavailable. Their feathers, once perhaps simple structures for insulation, became instruments of navigation, communication, and, eventually, mastery of the air. In their wings, we see an echo of the Cenozoic's experimental ethos. Every adaptation a calculated gamble, every new trait a potential revolution. Climate shifts accelerated this transformation. The Earth's temperature fluctuated, ice sheets waxed and waned, and continents drifted to new latitudes. These changes created diverse habitats: dense forests, sprawling plains, and wetlands teeming with opportunity. Each ecosystem became a crucible of innovation, pushing mammals to explore novel forms, behaviors, and strategies. Fossils reveal evidence of these adaptations. Teeth specialized for grinding plants, limbs engineered for speed, claws for climbing, and senses honed for nocturnal vigilance. Anatomical ingenuity became a lifeline, a bridge between mere survival and evolutionary triumph. Yet there is a question that science can never fully answer. How did these creatures experience the world? Did the first primitive primates, with their forward-facing eyes and agile fingers, sense the magnitude of the opportunity before them? Did a tiny rodent pause at the edge of a river and perceive, in some instinctive awareness, the vast new possibilities unfolding in a world without tyrants? Here, evidence fades into speculation. Yet speculation itself illuminates the grandeur of evolution. In imagining the sensory lives of these early mammals, we glimpse the birth of perspectives that would ultimately shape intelligence, curiosity, and, eventually, consciousness itself. Consider the rise of the first large herbivorous mammals. From small, inconspicuous beginnings, certain lineages began to grow in size, taking advantage of abundant vegetation and the absence of massive predators. Early ungulates, ancestors of deer, horses, and elephants, experimented with height, speed, and social organization. Fossilized bones reveal not just size, but function. Elongated limbs for endurance, teeth that could grind fibrous plants, skulls that accommodated growing brains. Each adaptation tells a story of trial, error, and extraordinary persistence. The Cenozoic was not merely a period of survival. It was a laboratory of possibility, where life pushed boundaries in ways both predictable and astonishingly novel. Predators evolved alongside them. Once the apex role of dinosaurs, this niche was now redefined by cunning, speed, and strategy rather than sheer scale. Small carnivorous mammals, previously scavengers, explored cooperative hunting and refined their sensory tools. Smell, sight, and hearing became instruments of precision rather than intimidation. Fossils of saber-toothed relatives, large feline analogs, and formidable bear-like predators speak to this experimental period in predation. Science allows us to reconstruct these dynamics, but imagination helps us understand their lived reality. The tension of a chase, the cunning required to survive, the pulse of life in a world rewritten as mammals and birds flourished. Ecosystems became increasingly complex. Grasslands spread, forests deepened, and rivers carved networks that connected habitats in ways that enabled migration, gene flow, and adaptive radiation. Fossilized pollen and plant remnants show a vivid tapestry of flora that both shaped and responded to animal life. Birds aid in seed dispersal. Grazing mammals transformed vegetation patterns, which in turn influenced climate and soil composition. Life was no longer just surviving. It was reshaping the very environment that nurtured it. This interplay between organism and ecosystem foreshadows a principle that would echo through evolutionary history. That life, in its endless experimentation, both responds to and constructs the world it inhabits. Yet even as science maps these trajectories, mysteries persist. How did behaviors emerge that left no trace in bones or teeth? Social hierarchies, mating rituals, and survival strategies are inferred, but never fully known. Some mammals developed remarkable cognitive abilities, memory, and foresight. Others evolved camouflage, mimicry, or defensive strategies invisible to the fossil record. These gaps invite speculation. Could certain adaptations have arisen almost spontaneously, guided by environmental pressures and perhaps subtle patterns of planetary rhythms? Was there a hidden intelligence in the unfolding of these forms, a cosmic nudging that we are only beginning to perceive? Birds provide a similar conundrum. Flight demands coordination, instinct, and a neurological architecture that seems almost preordained for aerial mastery. Fossilized skeletons reveal the mechanics, but not the experience. The exhilaration of lift, the calculation of navigation, the instinctive awareness of wind, weather, and prey. In imagining these experiences, we touch upon the philosophical questions that lie at the heart of life. What does it mean to perceive, to adapt, to survive? The Cenozoic invites these reflections, offering both scientific clarity and awe-driven wonder. During this period, evolutionary experimentation reached its zenith. Some lineages shrank to escape predation. Others grew to unimaginable proportions. The ancestors of whales returned to the seas, a reversal of terrestrial evolution that underscores life's astonishing plasticity. Flying squirrels, gliding lemurs, and other arboreal marvels navigated forests with precision and daring. Fossil evidence shows incremental changes, small but consequential steps that eventually yielded creatures of breathtaking diversity and capability. The narrative of this epic is one of trial, adaptation, an opportunity seized at every turn in every branch of life. From the tiniest insect-eating mammal to the soaring birds above, the underlying theme is clear. Evolution is opportunistic, patient, and relentless. The post-dinosaur world was a canvas for invention. It demanded adaptability, rewarded ingenuity, and punished stagnation. The Cenozoic was not merely a recovery phase. It was a period of flourishing, a laboratory of life in which every experiment carried the potential to redefine the trajectory of existence. This is also a story of contrast, the modesty of early mammals versus the grandeur of their descendants. The first rodents, primates, and carnivores were small, often overlooked and vulnerable. Yet over millions of years, some evolved into creatures of immense size, intelligence, and influence. Elephants, whales, apex predators of every stripe, these giants owe their existence to the subtle, persistent, and sometimes almost invisible groundwork laid by their unassuming ancestors. In their rise, we see a narrative of possibility, of latent potential unlocked by circumstance, resilience, and the inexorable force of natural selection. As we look across the Cenozoic landscape, we see life experimenting in multiple dimensions: form, function, behavior, and perception. Mammals are not simply filling spaces left by extinct reptiles. They are inventing entirely new modes of existence. Birds are not merely survivors. They are architects of the air. Together, they create an intricate web of interactions, interdependencies, and innovations that redefine what life on Earth can be. The fossil record allows us to glimpse this tapestry, but it is imagination and curiosity that truly bring it to life. The Cenozoic, then, is a testament to life's audacity. It is a period in which small, seemingly inconsequential creatures ventured into uncharted territories, experimented with their forms, and slowly, inexorably, became the new rulers of Earth. Science deciphers the bones, teeth, and imprints. Speculation animates their experiences, their choices, their struggles. And in this interplay, we confront a profound question. How does life navigate opportunity, risk, and innovation in a world forever altered by catastrophe? The answer, as ever, lies somewhere between evidence and imagination, fact and wonder. And so, the stage is set. The quiet scurrying of early mammals, the tentative flight of primitive birds, and the subtle shifts in climate and ecology all converge to create a world brimming with possibility. The Cenozoic is not just a period of adaptation, it is a period of invention, a theater of evolutionary creativity, and a laboratory for life itself. The story of mammals rising to dominance is also the story of experimentation, resilience, and the boundless potential inherent in existence. It is a narrative that challenges us to see beyond the fossilized remains, to imagine the lived experiences, and to marvel at the audacity of life, to claim dominion in the wake of extinction. And as these new rulers spread across continents, exploring forests, grasslands, and waterways, we are left with a tantalizing question. What hidden wonders, behaviors, and adaptations lay ahead, waiting to emerge in the endless experiment of life? The Cenozoic has only begun to reveal its secrets, and the journey of discovery continues. The Earth itself was restless. Long after the reign of dinosaurs ended, the planet continued to reshape its surface with a patience and ferocity that defied human comprehension. Mountains surged from the crust like the rising ambitions of a world reborn. Valleys deepened, oceans shifted, and glaciers crept inexorably toward the equator. The Cenozoic was not only the age of mammals, it was the age of geological drama, where tectonics and climate forged the stage on which life would play out its most extraordinary experiments. Picture a world in motion. In one hemisphere, ice sheets advanced, grinding valleys into existence and reshaping continents with immense pressure. In another, lush forests thrived, their canopies heavy with fruit, ferns, and the first flowering plants, teeming with newly adaptive mammals and birds. This was a period of extremes: fire and ice, growth and erosion, stability and upheaval, contrasts that defined the very possibilities of life. Fossils and sediment layers reveal the story of these dramatic shifts, but they only hint at the profound interplay between environment and evolution. Tectonic plates collided, pushed, and rotated, giving rise to mountains that would dominate skylines for millions of years. The Himalayas, the Rockies, the Andes, these colossal ranges are not mere monuments of stone. They are records of energy released over eons, forces that influenced wind patterns, rainfall, and the distribution of habitats. As mountains rose, rain shadows formed, creating deserts in some regions while feeding tropical forests in others. Life, ever adaptive, responded with astonishing precision. Grazing mammals learned to navigate plains newly created by rain shadows. Predators adapted to hunt in expanding grasslands, and birds developed migratory patterns attuned to seasonal shifts. Yet, even as science maps the movements of continents and the rise of peaks, Speculation allows us to imagine the lived reality of these changes. How did an early mammal perceive the sudden appearance of a cliff or the harsh winds of a newly formed plateau? Did the pressure of seasonal scarcity shape intelligence, cooperation, or memory in ways invisible to the fossil record? Could the vastness of the changing landscapes, the relentless power of glaciers, or the intricate maze of forests have nudged consciousness toward complexity? These are questions that science cannot fully answer, yet they beckon us to consider the intimate dialogue between environment and cognition. Ice ages marked some of the most dramatic episodes in this ongoing transformation. Polar ice sheets expanded and contracted, shifting ocean currents and atmospheric patterns, creating cycles of abundance and scarcity. Glacial advances carved fjords, scoured river valleys, and altered coastlines in ways that would persist for millennia. The echoes of these frozen cataclysms are preserved in moraines, till deposits, and isotopic signatures that allow geologists to reconstruct the dance of ice over time. But beyond the data, one can imagine the psychological impact on creatures, forced to navigate landscapes that alternated between abundance and peril. Survival required foresight, adaptability, and perhaps a nascent awareness of environmental rhythms. Ocean currents, too, were in constant flux, carrying heat, nutrients, and life across the globe. Changes in sea levels connected continents or isolated species, influencing evolutionary trajectories. Warm currents allowed tropical species to expand their ranges, while cold currents created barriers, fostering speciation and genetic diversity. Life and planet were intertwined. Each shift in currents, each pulse of glacial melt, reverberated through ecosystems, nudging evolution in ways both subtle and profound. Fossils show migration, adaptation, and extinction. Speculation hints at perception, behavior, and perhaps even a rudimentary form of environmental intelligence in mammals. Carbon dioxide fluctuations provide another layer of complexity. Atmospheric CO rose and fell, influencing temperature, vegetation, and the chemical makeup of oceans. These fluctuations were not merely physical phenomena. They were sculptors of opportunity and constraint, shaping which species thrived and which disappeared. Dense forests emerged in periods of warmth, while grasslands expanded when CO levels fell, driving evolutionary innovation. The interplay between chemistry, climate, and life created a feedback loop, a planetary-scale experiment in adaptation that continues to fascinate scientists. Today, the tension between stability and upheaval is evident across this period. Some regions remain temperate and lush, offering refuges for mammals and birds to diversify and experiment. Others oscillated between arid deserts and glacial extremes, demanding ingenuity and resilience. Fossil records capture the physical adaptations: longer limbs for migration, insulating fur for cold climates, specialized teeth for changing diets. Yet the behavioral and cognitive adaptations, the way creatures interpreted, remembered, and responded to these environmental oscillations, remain largely speculative. Could the pressures of climate have accelerated problem-solving, cooperation, or even rudimentary foresight in mammals? Might the rhythms of ice ages and monsoons have been subtly imprinted on the evolution of consciousness? Consider the contrast between frozen tundras and tropical rainforests. In one, creatures contended with bone-chilling cold, scarce food, and shifting glaciers. In the other, dense foliage, relentless humidity, and competition for sunlight and resources drove a different suite of adaptations. Life was forced to navigate extremes, developing strategies for survival that were as diverse as the landscapes themselves. Scientific evidence tells us where species lived and how they adapted physically. Speculation invites us to imagine their awareness, their interactions, and the subtle cognitive pressures imposed by environment. The rise and fall of sea levels added yet another dimension to the drama. Coastlines shifted, creating new islands, peninsulas, and estuaries. Migration routes opened and closed, isolating populations and fostering speciation. Some mammals returned to the water, giving rise to whales and seals, while others expanded across plains and forests, exploring new niches. The planet's surface was a dynamic theater, continually rewritten by tectonics, ice, and oceans, challenging life to innovate or perish. The patterns of survival and adaptation in response to these forces are evident in fossils, but the intimate experience of creatures navigating these changing worlds remains tantalizingly beyond reach. Volcanism, too, left its mark, injecting aerosols into the atmosphere, altering climate, and depositing nutrient-rich soils. In some regions, volcanic activity created fertile grounds for forests, grasslands, and agricultural ancestors. In others, eruptions brought devastation, testing the resilience of life yet again. The Earth's forces were both creator and destroyer, alternately nurturing and challenging the species that had emerged from the shadows of extinction. Mammals adapted, migrated, and innovated in response, demonstrating not only physical resilience, but a subtle, emergent intelligence shaped by planetary pressures. Speculative reflections deepen the mystery. Did early mammals develop an intuitive sense of seasonal cycles or long-term environmental patterns? Could repeated exposure to extreme climates have influenced social behaviors, memory, or cooperation in ways that set the stage for future intelligence? Fossils preserve anatomy, isotopes preserve diet, and sediment layers preserve climate, but consciousness, awareness, and perception remain elusive. Yet, it is in this space between evidence and imagination that we sense the true grandeur of evolution, a dialogue between life and planet, a co-creative process that is both scientific and philosophical. The contrast between geological permanence and biological impermanence is striking. Mountains endure for millions of years. Glaciers advance and retreat. Species emerge and vanish in comparatively fleeting spans. Life, in response, became agile, adaptable, and inventive. Some mammals evolved insulating fur, hibernation cycles, or social cooperation to endure extreme conditions. Birds developed migratory patterns, sophisticated navigation, and reproductive timing attuned to environmental cues. These adaptations highlight a fundamental principle. While Earth's forces were slow and relentless, life responded with speed, creativity, and strategy. In examining these Cenozoic transformations, one cannot ignore the philosophical implications. The interplay between environment and life suggests that consciousness and behavior are not merely products of biology, but may also be shaped by planetary forces. Survival in extreme climates could have fostered problem-solving, foresight, and social cooperation. Migration across shifting landscapes may have nurtured spatial awareness, memory, and planning. The Earth's tumultuous evolution was not only a canvas for physical adaptation, but a crucible for cognitive and behavioral sophistication. As the Cenozoic progressed, the planet stabilized in some regions while remaining volatile in others. Life continued to diversify, each species a participant in the ongoing experiment of adaptation. Mountains, rivers, oceans, and glaciers acted as both constraints and opportunities, sculpting evolutionary trajectories. The tension between environmental stability and upheaval created an evolutionary theater of infinite possibility, where every climate shift, tectonic upheaval, or glacial advance reshaped the rules of survival. And so, as we trace the rise of mammals in the diversification of life, we must also look outward to the forces that shaped their world. Mountains, ice sheets, oceans, and climate were not passive backdrops. They were active participants in the story, influencing evolution, behavior, and perhaps even the emergence of consciousness itself. Life and planet were entwined in an intricate dance, a dialogue of challenge and response, constraint and creativity, Evidence and mystery. The Cenozoic reveals a planet in motion, a world simultaneously stable and volatile, nurturing and punishing. By understanding these changes, we gain insight not only into evolution, but into the intimate relationship between life and the forces that govern the Earth. And as the story unfolds, the focus shifts from individual species to planetary scale dynamics, setting the stage for understanding how environmental pressures sculpted ecosystems, behaviors, and ultimately, the trajectories of intelligence itself. In this narrative, the Earth is no longer a silent stage. It is a character, an agent of transformation, shaping life through climate, tectonics, and oceans. The tension between stability and upheaval drives adaptation and innovation. The interplay between evidence and speculation invites us to imagine how early mammals perceived, responded to, and were perhaps subtly guided by the forces of their changing world. And as we move forward, we transition from the intimate realm of evolutionary biology to the planetary forces that shape not only life, but the very conditions under which intelligence could emerge. The Earth, now stabilized from its era of cataclysm and upheaval, began a solar transformation, one that would lay the foundation for the ecosystems we recognize today. Forests thickened and expanded, grasslands spread across continents, and oceans teemed with life in astonishing diversity. Life was no longer merely surviving or adapting. It was beginning to organize, to co-evolve, and to engineer the world around it. Every plant, every animal, every microbe played a role in shaping the biosphere, often in ways invisible to the human eye, but monumental in consequence. Consider a single flower emerging in a dense forest. Its petals unfold with a precision honed by millions of years of evolution. A bee, a tiny pollinator, senses its color, scent, and shape, navigating the air with remarkable acuity. This dance is both a story of survival and a story of intricate collaboration, a microcosm of the forces that would define entire ecosystems. Without the pollinator, the plant struggles. Without the plant, the pollinator starves. Science uncovers the mechanism structures of pollen, the anatomy of wings, neural pathways in insect brains. But speculation invites us to imagine the lived experience. The thrill of the bee finding its first bloom, the chemical dialogue guiding its flight, the subtle perception of danger, reward, and opportunity now expand the perspective to an entire forest. Towering trees compete for sunlight, their roots forming vast underground networks with fungi, exchanging nutrients and signaling danger. Birds flit through the canopy, predators stalk the understory, and mammals forage across the forest floor. Fossils, pollen records, and sediment layers reveal the composition of these ancient forests, their rhythms, and the evolution of their inhabitants. Yet beneath the data lies mystery. How did early mammals navigate these complex landscapes, detect threats, or communicate with one another? Did sensory perception, smell, sight, sound adapt to the geometry and density of the forest itself, shaping behavior in ways we can only infer? Grasslands tell a different story. In regions where forests receded, grasses proliferated, transforming soil composition, climate interactions, and the strategies of herbivores. Grazing mammals diversified in response. Some evolved speed and endurance to evade predators. Others developed complex social structures to protect themselves. Predators, in turn, refined tactics for hunting over open expanses. Fossils, tracks, and isotopic evidence trace these changes with remarkable precision. But the experiential aspect, the awareness, calculation, and decision-making of these animals remain speculative. It is here, at the intersection of science and imagination, that we grasp the full grandeur of ecosystem evolution. Oceans, too, were undergoing their own revolution. Coral reefs, kelp forests, and deep-sea currents created niches for countless species. Fish evolved forms and behaviors attuned to light, pressure, and predation. Marine mammals explored new feeding strategies and migratory routes. Microscopic plankton, the engines of marine productivity, regulated oxygen and nutrient cycles on a planetary scale. Science deciphers these networks through fossils, chemical signatures, and sediment analysis. But imagination allows us to perceive the sensory universe of these creatures. The flicker of bioluminescent signals, the pulse of sonar in cetaceans, the complex interactions of predator and prey beneath waves that stretch to the horizon. This era of ecosystem formation was fundamentally a story of coevolution. Plants and animals were engaged in a continuous feedback loop. Flowering plants evolved with the development of pollinators. Herbivores influenced vegetation patterns, and predators molded prey populations. Microbial communities decomposed matter, recycled nutrients, and even influenced plant growth. Science illuminates these mechanisms in astonishing detail, from DNA analysis to paleobotanical reconstruction. Yet speculation allows us to imagine the emergent properties of these interactions. The rhythms of life, the subtle influences that guide behavior, and the invisible threads connecting species across space and time. Contrast is everywhere. In the same period that sprawling savannas challenged mammals to innovate social structures, dense forests tested their spatial cognition. In oceans, vast currents created corridors and barriers, shaping migration and speciation. Life was simultaneously constrained and enabled, a continuous negotiation with environmental forces. Evidence tells us the what and the how, but imagination beckons us to ponder the experience. How? Creatures perceive opportunity, threat, and the vastness of their world. Did early mammals sense the contours of territory, the presence of predators, or even the rhythm of seasons as a predictive guide? How did sensory evolution inform intelligence, cooperation, or survival strategies? Forests, grasslands, and oceans were not passive backdrops. They were active participants in evolution. Trees sequestered carbon, influencing climate and weather. Grasslands reflected sunlight, altered precipitation, and drove fire cycles that reshaped the landscape. Coral reefs modified currents, created habitats, and protected coastlines. The interplay between organisms and environment was complex, iterative, and dynamic. Fossil evidence and geological records reveal structure and composition, but they cannot fully capture the emergent intelligence inherent in these co-evolving systems. Here, the boundary between science and wonder becomes most vivid. Consider a herd of early ungulates traversing a grassland. Their limbs are adapted for speed, their senses finely tuned to detect predators. Birds swoop overhead, insects pollinate nearby shrubs, and microbial networks below their hooves recycle nutrients, sustaining the very plants they graze upon. Each interaction is both cause and consequence, a microcosm of the planetary scale dynamics shaping ecosystems. Science allows us to measure movement, diet, and population dynamics. Speculation allows us to imagine the decision-making, awareness, and problem-solving required for survival in these dynamic environments. The rise of complex ecosystems also created opportunities for experimentation in behavior. Social structures, mating strategies, and foraging techniques evolved in response to environmental pressures. In forests, mammals developed arboreal skills. In open plains, herd dynamics enhanced survival. In oceans, cooperative hunting strategies emerged. Fossils preserve anatomy and trackways, but the nuances of interaction, the decisions, the adaptations, and emergent intelligence remain elusive. Speculation bridges the gap, offering glimpses into the lived experiences that drove adaptation and innovation. Microscopic life played an equally profound role. Soil microbes, symbiotic fungi, and planktonic organisms orchestrated nutrient cycles that determined which species thrived and which faltered. These invisible actors shaped the macro world in ways that echo to this day. Their interactions with plants influence growth, reproduction, and distribution, ultimately guiding the evolution of entire ecosystems. Science maps the chemical and structural evidence. Speculation invites us to imagine the consequences, the unseen intelligence of the microbial world influencing, imperceptibly, the destinies of mammals, birds, and even humans millennia later. Even the seemingly small choices of organisms carried planetary implications. Where a pollinator chose to land, where a predator pursued prey, where a seed fell, these actions ripple through ecosystems, influencing species composition and evolutionary trajectories. Fossils and sediments tell the outcome. Imagination allows us to perceive the process, to feel the rhythm of life as a co-evolving web of interactions. This duality, evidence and speculation, fact and perception, is central to understanding how modern ecosystems emerged. Water, a life-giving medium, further shaped habitats. Rivers carved valleys, lakes hosted diverse communities, and seasonal flooding redistributed nutrients. Wetlands became biodiversity hotspots, supporting intricate food webs that integrated terrestrial and aquatic life. Coastal systems connected with marine environments, creating corridors for migration and genetic exchange. Each hydrological shift offered both challenge and opportunity, constraining some species while enabling the rise of others. Fossils record anatomy and distribution, but imagination allows us to envision the sensory experience, the ripple of water beneath hooves, the scent of wet earth guiding migration, the awareness of depth, flow, and danger dawn in the oceans. The rise of coral reefs, kelp forests, and nutrient-rich currents created a parallel story of coevolution. Fish, cephalopods, and marine mammals responded to changing habitats with innovations in mobility, intelligence, and predation. Migratory routes, social hunting, and complex communication emerged under environmental pressures. Microbial and planktonic communities regulated the chemistry of oceans, influencing oxygen, carbon, and nutrient cycles. Evidence provides structural and chemical insight. Speculation illuminates perception, strategy, and the emergent intelligence shaping survival. The result of these processes was an intricate, interwoven world. Forests, grasslands, and oceans became self-sustaining systems, resilient yet adaptive, dynamic yet ordered. Life had shifted from isolated species, reacting to change, to interconnected communities, co-evolving with their environments. Science maps these patterns. Imagination reconstructs the rhythms, interactions, and sensory experiences that gave rise to ecological complexity. Here, microscopic and macroscopic perspectives merge. The flutter of a pollinator, the chase of a predator, the migration of herds, the flow of currents, all facets of a planetary scale experiment in life. As these ecosystems matured, they set the stage for the next great evolutionary leap, the emergence of primates, intelligence, and ultimately humans. The coevolution of plants and animals created habitats rich in resources, niches, and opportunities for cognitive and behavioral innovation. Forest canopies nurtured climbing and spatial awareness. Grasslands demanded social coordination and planning. Oceans encouraged exploration, strategy, and adaptation. Each ecosystem was both a challenge and a crucible, shaping not only survival but the potential for consciousness. The contrast is profound. Microscopic processes and individual decisions ripple across vast continents and oceans, shaping life on a scale almost incomprehensible. Fossils, sediments, and isotopes provide a roadmap, but imagination allows us to experience the textures, rhythms, and subtle intelligence embedded in these systems. In tracing the origins of modern ecosystems, we glimpse the interplay of biology, geology, and climate, a complex, ongoing dialogue that sets the stage for the emergence of humans and extraordinary tapestry of life they would inherit. In the Cenozoic, life evolved not in isolation, but in concert with its environment. From microbial networks beneath the soil to the soaring canopies above, ecosystems became arenas of innovation, coevolution, and experimentation. Science deciphers form and function. Speculation envisions perception and experience. Together, they illuminate the profound truth of the natural world. Life is both responsive and proactive, constrained and creative, material and, in subtle ways, anticipatory. And so, the Earth as we know it, its forests, grasslands, and oceans emerges from a long process of coevolution, adaptation, and experimentation. These systems are not static. They are dynamic, interdependent, and reflective of forces that shape both species and landscapes. As mammals and birds continue to diversify within these ecosystems, the stage was set for intelligence, curiosity, and the eventual emergence of humans, observers of the very processes that once shaped them. The story of ecosystems is the story of life's ingenuity, resilience, and the delicate interplay between the microscopic and the monumental, the tangible and the mysterious. From the shadowed undergrowth of late Cenozoic forests emerged a lineage unlike any before, a lineage destined not merely to survive, but to question, explore, and reshape the world. Primates appeared, small and cautious, their lives dictated by instinct, yet increasingly punctuated by curiosity. In the dappled light of ancient canopies, early primates learned to reach, grasp, and leap with a precision that hinted at possibilities far beyond mere survival. Every motion of limb and digit was a negotiation with gravity, terrain, and predator. Science reveals the anatomy: opposable thumbs, forward-facing eyes, flexible spines, but speculation allows us to imagine perception, the thrill of reaching for the unknown, the careful calculation of distance, the spark of recognition when a fruit is found or a predator avoided. Contrast defines this era. Primates balanced vulnerability and ingenuity. Small, silent, and at the mercy of carnivores and environmental shifts, they nonetheless displayed the first glimmers of behavioral complexity. Fossilized skulls hint at enlarging brains. Dental evidence suggests diversified diets, signaling an ability to exploit resources with creativity and adaptability. Early primates were more than survivors. They were experimenters in cognition. Did they sense the patterns of seasons, the cycles of predators and prey? Could the forest itself, in its infinite complexity, have shaped the architecture of memory, problem-solving, and awareness? These are the questions that bridge anatomy and imagination, biology and philosophy. Sociality became a cornerstone of primate evolution. Group living offered protection and opportunity. Coordinated vigilance, the sharing of knowledge about food sources, and the subtle exchange of communication through gestures, expressions, and calls. Fossil records of skeletal injuries, tooth marks, and nesting sites hint at cooperation and conflict. Yet the inner lives of these early communities remain largely speculative. Did early primates recognize kin, strategize alliances, or anticipate the needs of companions? Did empathy, even in nascent form, evolve as a survival tool? The roots of social complexity stretch back to these first forest-dwelling primates, foreshadowing the intricate relationships that would define hominin societies. The rise of early hominins marks the next extraordinary leap. From modest tree-dwelling primates, a lineage gradually ventured into the open landscapes of Africa. Australopithecines and other early hominins combined arboreal skill with terrestrial adaptation, navigating both forests and savannas. Fossils tell us of bipedal locomotion, of hands capable of precision grip, of teeth and jaws evolving for omnivorous diets. But beyond the anatomical, speculation opens a window into experience. The cautious first steps across open grasslands, the scanning of horizons for danger, the curiosity that led to tool use, and the first recognition that the world could be shaped by intention rather than chance. Tool use signals a profound cognitive threshold. Early hominins began to manipulate stones, branches, and other materials to accomplish tasks that the body alone could not. Science uncovers the patterns in flaked stones, wear marks, and strategic placements. Speculation invites us to imagine the thought processes behind these actions. Problem recognition, planning, experimentation, and the tentative joy of success. With each tool fashioned, the mind expanded, exploring possibilities that extended beyond instinct. Life was no longer merely reactive. It became inventive. Curiosity emerged as a force nearly as powerful as necessity, setting the stage for the uniquely human trajectory. Migration patterns further shaped early human evolution. As climates shifted and habitats fluctuated, hominins traversed new terrains, encountering challenges that demanded adaptation and innovation. Fossil distribution, genetic markers, and isotopic evidence trace these movements across Africa and eventually into Eurasia. The open plains and scattered forests required different strategies than dense canopies. Early humans learned to track prey over long distances, store food, and navigate landmarks. They developed cooperative behaviors that enhanced survival in novel environments, and in doing so, laid the groundwork for culture, language, and collective problem-solving. The emergence of curiosity and problem-solving represents a fundamental contrast with survival instincts. Where instincts demand immediate reaction, curiosity allows anticipation, experimentation, and learning. Early hominins did not merely respond to threats or opportunities. They explored them, evaluated them, and sometimes imagined alternatives. Fossils provide anatomical evidence of brain enlargement and cortical development, hinting at enhanced perception, memory, and reasoning. DNA suggests the potential for complex social behaviors and even rudimentary communication. Yet the true wonder lies in what we cannot measure, the inner spark that turned mere survival into exploration, observation into reflection, and awareness into consciousness. Consciousness itself emerges as a philosophical frontier. What does it mean to recognize oneself, to anticipate another's actions, or to imagine a future yet unseen? Early hominins may have possessed the nascent forms of self-awareness, reflected in tool-making, social coordination, and problem-solving. Did they ponder cause and effect in the same intuitive way we do today? Could they experience a sense of temporality, the understanding that actions now could influence outcomes tomorrow? Science can only suggest structures and capacities. Speculation allows us to grasp the profound existential emergence, the first glimmers of beings aware of themselves within a vast and dynamic world. Environmental pressures shape behavior and cognition alike. In dense forests, spatial reasoning, climbing ability, and memory were paramount. Across savannas, endurance, coordination, and foresight determined survival. Predation, resource scarcity, and seasonal fluctuation acted as catalysts, shaping the neural architecture that would ultimately support culture, language, and abstract thought. Fossils reveal physical adaptation. Isotopes trace diet and migration. DNA illuminates lineage and connectivity. Yet the experiential dimension, the subtle emergence of intelligence under ecological pressure, remains a space of awe and mystery. Social complexity deepened with the evolution of early hominins. Cooperation was no longer a simple survival strategy. It became a cognitive tool. Group hunting, shared childcare, and coordinated defense demanded memory, planning, and communication. Observations of primate behavior provide analogs, but early humans likely took these capacities to new levels. Did empathy, rivalry, or shared ritual emerge as adaptive behaviors? Could the observation of others' intentions, the seed of theory of mind, have arisen in response to these social pressures? Volcanism played a similarly dramatic role. Supereruptions injected vast quantities of ash and gas into the atmosphere, altering climate and decimating ecosystems. Evidence from igneous rock layers, isotopic anomalies, and ash deposits charts these events with precision. Yet the narrative is not only geological, it is existential. Each eruption was a reset button, a reminder that the stability life relies upon is provisional. And yet, in these periods of upheaval, new opportunities emerged. Novel climates favored different species. Ecological voids allowed adaptive radiation, and life, again and again, found a way to rebound. Climate, with its inherent unpredictability, further illustrates the tension between pattern and surprise. Glacial cycles, shifts in ocean currents, and atmospheric changes imposed alternating periods of challenge and opportunity. Fossil evidence shows migrations, extinctions, and bursts of diversification in response to these fluctuations. Mammals and birds adapted, evolved, and exploited ecological niches, while other lineages disappeared. The interplay of gradual change and sudden disruption underscores a key truth. Life's trajectory is contingent, shaped by both predictable forces and random perturbations. Concept of cosmic coincidence invites reflection on purpose and contingency. Are mass extinctions and sudden events merely chaotic accidents, or do they reveal a deeper pattern in the universe's unfolding? Speculation does not demand theology, only curiosity. Could the sequence of catastrophes that preserve some lineages while eliminating others be seen as a subtle selection on a planetary scale? A choreography of chance and necessity. Life's resilience, in this view, is simultaneously mechanical and miraculous. Empirical and philosophical. In examining extinction cycles, we see both regularity and anomaly. Evidence shows recurring patterns, volcanic pulses, orbital variations, climatic oscillations, but each event retains an element of unpredictability. Species that seemed secure were suddenly imperiled. Obscure lineages ascended into prominence. Evolution is less a linear march than a stochastic symphony, punctuated by crescendos of disaster and pauses of opportunity. Fossils document the outcomes, but speculation fills in the narrative. Imagining lives abruptly altered, ecosystems reshaped, and the silent dance of fate and contingency that governs survival. The consequences for early hominins are profound. The same unpredictability that shaped ecosystems and species evolution also guided their emergence. Populations exposed to climatic shifts, habitat fragmentation, and ecological surprises developed cognitive flexibility, innovation, and social strategies that would prove decisive. Environmental instability demanded foresight, cooperation, and problem-solving. Science can trace population bottlenecks, migration patterns, and adaptive traits. Speculation allows us to imagine the perceptual and cognitive challenges that early humans faced. The anxiety of sudden drought, the ingenuity required to exploit a new habitat, the nascent recognition that the world is governed by forces both predictable and capricious. Astrophysical perspective amplifies the philosophical dimension. Earth is not isolated. It exists in a cosmos of hazards and contingencies. Comets, asteroids, solar flares, and orbital variations impose risks invisible to daily perception, yet consequential on geological and evolutionary scales. The chance alignment of these forces with biological resilience defines the narrow corridor in which complex life emerges. Humanity's existence, in this sense, is both inevitable and improbable. The product of innumerable cosmic coincidences filtered through the sieve of survival and adaptation. Volcanic, climatic, and impact-driven catastrophes also illuminate the principle of opportunity. Extinction is never only loss. It is also a vacuum into which life radiates. Species that survive become architects of new ecosystems, beneficiaries of space and resources vacated by the vanished. Mammals, in particular, exploited these openings, diversifying in size, habitat, and behavior. Science records these adaptive radiations through fossils, isotopic evidence, and anatomical analysis. Speculation animates them. The cautious exploration of a newly exposed plane, the first steps into an abandoned niche, the behavioral experiments that shaped cognition and culture. The narrative of catastrophe also invites reflection on time and scale. Life operates across epochs, yet each sudden event compresses millennia of adaptation into moments of crisis. Fossils freeze these moments, but imagination reconstructs the tension, urgency, and improvisation that define survival. The balance between continuity and rupture becomes apparent. Evolutionary patterns persist, yet contingency ensures that nothing is guaranteed. The interplay of predictability and surprise, necessity and chance, defines the drama of life's story. Philosophically, these cosmic coincidences provoke questions about destiny and meaning. Does life unfold according to hidden principles, or is it merely the product of stochastic events? Can intelligence, consciousness, and self-reflection arise in a universe where catastrophe is both frequent and indiscriminate? Science elucidates mechanisms. Speculation contemplates significance. In the crucible of the Cenozoic, life repeatedly faced existential tests, and yet, through resilience, adaptation, and chance, complexity emerged. The trajectory of evolution is simultaneously guided and chaotic, a dance of law and contingency that challenges simple narratives of progress. By the end of the Cenozoic, the cumulative impact of catastrophes, climate shifts, and cosmic coincidences had sculpted life's trajectory in profound ways. Mammals and birds had diversified, ecosystems had reorganized, and early hominins had emerged with the cognitive and social tools necessary to navigate uncertainty. Science reveals the sequence and mechanisms of these transformations. Speculation invites reflection on the contingency and improbability underlying them. The story is not deterministic. It is a tapestry woven from chance events, selective pressures, and the subtle intelligence of life itself, contemplating mass extinctions, asteroid impacts, and climatic surprises. We confront a duality. Nature is both predictable and capricious, ordered and chaotic, resilient and fragile. Volcanism played a similarly dramatic role. Supereruptions injected vast quantities of ash and gas into the atmosphere, altering climate and decimating ecosystems. Evidence from igneous rock layers, isotopic anomalies, and ash deposits charts these events with precision. Yet the narrative is not only geological, it is existential. Each eruption was a reset button, a reminder that the stability life relies upon is provisional. And yet, in these periods of upheaval, new opportunities emerged. Novel climates favored different species. Ecological voids allowed adaptive radiation, and life, again and again, found a way to rebound. Climate, with its inherent unpredictability, further illustrates the tension between pattern and surprise. Glacial cycles, shifts in ocean currents, and atmospheric changes imposed alternating periods of challenge and opportunity. Fossil evidence shows migrations, extinctions, and bursts of diversification in response to these fluctuations. Mammals and birds adapted, evolved, and exploited ecological niches, while other lineages disappeared. The interplay of gradual change and sudden disruption underscores a key truth. Life's trajectory is contingent, shaped by both predictable forces and random perturbations. Concept of cosmic coincidence invites reflection on purpose and contingency. Are mass extinctions and sudden events merely chaotic accidents, or do they reveal a deeper pattern in the universe's unfolding? Speculation does not demand theology, only curiosity. Could the sequence of catastrophes that preserve some lineages while eliminating others be seen as a subtle selection on a planetary scale, a choreography of chance and necessity? Life's resilience, in this view, is simultaneously mechanical and miraculous. Empirical and philosophical. In examining extinction cycles, we see both regularity and anomaly. Evidence shows recurring patterns, volcanic pulses, orbital variations, climatic oscillations, but each event retains an element of unpredictability. Species that seemed secure were suddenly imperiled. Obscure lineages ascended into prominence. Evolution is less a linear march than a stochastic symphony, punctuated by crescendos of disaster and pauses of opportunity. Fossils document the outcomes, but speculation fills in the narrative, imagining lives abruptly altered, ecosystems reshaped, and the silent dance of fate and contingency that governs survival. The consequences for early hominins are profound. The same unpredictability that shaped ecosystems and species evolution also guided their emergence. Populations exposed to climatic shifts, habitat fragmentation, and ecological surprises developed cognitive flexibility, innovation, and social strategies that would prove decisive. Environmental instability demanded foresight, cooperation, and problem-solving. Science can trace population bottlenecks, migration patterns, and adaptive traits. Speculation allows us to imagine the perceptual and cognitive challenges that early humans faced. The anxiety of sudden drought, the ingenuity required to exploit a new habitat, the nascent recognition that the world is governed by forces both predictable and capricious. Astrophysical perspective amplifies the philosophical dimension. Earth is not isolated. It exists in a cosmos of hazards and contingencies. Comets, asteroids, solar flares, and orbital variations impose risks invisible to daily perception, yet consequential on geological and speculation, however, allows us to inhabit the experience of thinking beings who first glimpse themselves within a vast and often unforgiving world. The emergence of intelligence is inseparable from environmental context. Fluctuating climates, shifting ecosystems, and unpredictable catastrophes demanded flexibility, creativity, and problem-solving. Species capable of anticipating change, innovating strategies, and coordinating with others gained survival advantages. Neural circuits expanded to accommodate complex sensory input, memory, and planning. Fossils hint at brain growth. Isotopic data suggests diet diversification and adaptive behavior. Yet the subjective quality, the inner sense of awareness, curiosity, and intentionality remains a frontier beyond fossils. As complexity increased, the boundaries between instinct and self-reflection blurred. Early cognition relied on perception, memory, and action. Gradually, organisms capable of imagining alternative futures and evaluating consequences emerged. Science traces this trajectory through anatomical and behavioral evidence. Speculation animates it, envisioning creatures capable of considering cause and effect, anticipating social dynamics, and perhaps experiencing the first stirrings of introspection. Consciousness is no longer an abstract phenomenon. It is a product of evolutionary pressures, environmental challenges, and social interaction converging across millennia. From a cosmic perspective, the emergence of consciousness acquires staggering significance. Earth is a singular stage in a vast universe, where countless worlds may exist, but only here has life evolved to reflect upon itself. The juxtaposition of neural networks with orbital imagery evokes both intimacy and scale. Awareness arises in the delicate folds of brain tissue, yet this awareness contemplates continents, oceans, and the cosmic panorama. Science can chart mechanisms and evolutionary trajectories. Philosophy probes meaning, possibility, and contingency. Why should complexity culminate in beings capable of asking such questions? The question of inevitability versus accident persists. Some theorists suggest that given sufficient time and energy flow, complexity and consciousness are natural outcomes arising wherever life persists. Others argue that consciousness is an extraordinarily rare event, contingent on a precise confluence of planetary, ecological, and evolutionary factors. From neurons to social structures to civilizations, the emergent properties of life reflect both determinism and chance. Science maps the pathways. Speculation reveals the improbable beauty of their intersections. Life's evolution toward intelligence also underscores the interplay between scale and integration. Individual neural activity, group behavior, and ecosystem dynamics are all layers in a nested hierarchy of complexity. Feedback loops amplify adaptive success, enabling cognition to evolve alongside sociality and environmental manipulation. Fossils and genetic evidence trace anatomical innovation, yet the leap from neural networks to conscious reflection is intangible. How does the firing of cells translate into the subjective experience of thought, memory, or wonder? The mystery itself evokes a sense of awe, bridging empirical observation with philosophical inquiry. Time magnifies the drama. Across millions of years, small changes accumulate: synaptic refinement, social coordination, dietary diversification, and migratory experience. These incremental adjustments create the architecture for higher-order cognition. Bipedal locomotion, tool use, and environmental mastery are not merely physical adaptations. They are catalysts for intelligence, shaping the brain in ways that permit abstract thought. Fossils record morphology. DNA suggests connectivity and evolutionary lineage. Conscious experience remains speculative, yet compelling. A narrative thread linking atoms to awareness, evolution to reflection. Consciousness, however, is not merely biological. It is relational. Interaction with the environment, observation of other beings, and engagement with social structures magnify cognitive complexity. Empathy, cooperation, and competition all shape perception, memory, and problem-solving. Science identifies neural correlates and behavioral analogs. Speculation recreates the lived experience of early humans and their predecessors. The awareness that I exist arises alongside the recognition of others exist, suggesting that social dynamics may have been as crucial as physical adaptation in the evolution of self-awareness. The narrative extends naturally to existential reflection. Humanity, as a product of this evolutionary process, is both observer and participant in the cosmos. From neurons firing in the brain to continents shifting beneath tectonic plates, life manifests patterns of complexity that invite contemplation. Science dissects mechanisms. Philosophy questions purpose and contingency. Does consciousness confer a unique role in the universe, or is it merely a transient phenomenon in a vast temporal and spatial context? Each perspective enriches the other, combining awe, rigor, and speculation. Complexity manifests across multiple scales, from the microscopic to the planetary. Neural networks in individual brains echo ecological networks across landscapes. Atmospheric and oceanic circulation patterns mirror circulatory flows within organisms. Science elucidates these analogies, revealing both functional and emergent patterns. Speculation elevates them into philosophical reflection. Perhaps consciousness is an inevitable expression of complex systems observing themselves, a mirror of the universe contemplating its own structure. This vision entwines biology, ecology, and cosmology in a singular, awe-inspiring narrative. The emergence of human cognition is a culmination of evolutionary pressures and cosmic context. Early hominins faced environmental uncertainty, social challenges, and predation, all of which shaped cognitive flexibility. Tool use, problem-solving, and social coordination accelerated neural development. Fossil evidence charts morphology. Isotopes reveal diet and migration. DNA traces lineage and adaptability. Speculation provides the interiority, the capacity to imagine, anticipate, and reflect upon one's own existence and that of the world. Intelligence, self-awareness, and consciousness are inseparable from the evolutionary and ecological processes that created them. The philosophical implications are profound. Consciousness allows life to contemplate its origins, its trajectory, and its place in the cosmos. Awareness transforms survival into reflection, instinct into inquiry, and action into intentionality. Science traces patterns, quantifies mechanisms, and reconstructs evolutionary history. Speculation evokes wonder, raising questions of purpose, inevitability, and contingency. Are we a natural outcome of complexity, or a rare accident in a vast universe? Does the emergence of consciousness signify a hidden principle, or is it an ephemeral curiosity within the cosmic tapestry? In considering human cognition alongside the vastness of space and the deep timescales of evolution, a sense of humility emerges. Microscopic neural firings converge into awareness capable of perceiving continents, oceans, and galaxies. Life, in its recursive complexity, observes itself while simultaneously navigating uncertainty. Science provides context. Philosophy provides scale. The interplay between empirical knowledge and existential speculation deepens the awe, highlighting both the fragility and profundity of conscious experience. The narrative also emphasizes continuity. Consciousness did not appear suddenly. It emerged gradually from networks of neurons, behaviors, and social interactions shaped by evolutionary and environmental forces. Each step, from sensory perception to memory, planning, and abstraction, contributed to a structure capable of reflecting upon its own existence. Science traces causation. Philosophy invites contemplation. Complexity is thus both process and outcome, mechanism and marvel, tangible and mysterious. Ultimately, consciousness positions humanity within a cosmic perspective. Life on Earth, shaped by contingency, adaptation, and rare opportunity, culminates in beings capable of asking questions about the universe itself. From neural circuits to ecological systems to planetary dynamics, complexity manifests at every scale. Science elucidates pathways. Speculation explores significance. The human mind, arising from the interplay of biology, environment, and chance, embodies both the fragility and magnificence of conscious experience. This section bridges the story of life's evolution with a philosophical contemplation of existence. Complexity, intelligence, and self-awareness emerge not in isolation, but in a context of environmental challenge, social interaction, and cosmic contingency. Fossils, DNA, and anatomical structures provide the empirical foundation. Speculative reflection enriches understanding, inviting us to inhabit the interiority of early thinkers and to consider the improbable, awe-inspiring trajectory that culminated in human consciousness. And as Earth rotates in the vast cosmic expanse, as continents drift and climates fluctuate, consciousness itself gazes outward. It observes patterns, wonders at origins, and imagines possibilities. Life, once anonymous in the shadowed forests and open plains, now contemplates itself, its history, and its place in the universe. Complexity is not merely a property of matter. It is a narrative of emergence, resilience, and awareness. Science tells us how it arose. Philosophy asks why it matters. In bridging these perspectives, we begin to grasp the extraordinary convergence that allows life to reflect, to question, and to marvel at the cosmos from which it emerged. As the Cenozoic draws to a close in the geological record, a question emerges. What does this sprawling saga of life, catastrophe, and resilience teach us about our own place in the universe? Millions of years of evolution, countless extinctions, and the ceaseless dance of adaptation leave more than fossils. They leave a blueprint, a subtle lesson about survival, opportunity, and responsibility. The planet itself has endured cycles of destruction and renewal. Yet its most intricate creations, including humanity, now hold the power to shape the next chapter of life's story. Science provides the evidence. Patterns of extinction and diversification, climate shifts and tectonic upheavals, species rising and falling. Fossils, isotopic records, and genetic traces chart the consequences of past events. Speculation draws us inward, asking, how do these lessons resonate with conscious beings capable of reflecting upon their own actions? The contrast is stark. Nature, in its blind, elegant processes, has persisted through catastrophic chaos. Humanity, by contrast, possesses foresight and intentionality. We can understand risk, anticipate consequence, and choose paths that may either safeguard or imperil the intricate web of life. The Cenozoic demonstrates resilience in its purest form. Mammals rose from near anonymity to dominance. Ecosystems reorganized after mass extinctions. New climates forged new adaptations. Each recovery was a testament to flexibility, innovation, and opportunity, seizing the void left by loss. Yet these stories of renewal are inseparable from disaster. Chance, contingency, and cosmic coincidence punctuated evolution at every stage. The lesson is both humbling and inspiring. Resilience is forged in adversity, and complexity thrives not in certainty, but in response to challenge. We are now the stewards of a planet with histories encoded in stone, and life imprinted in DNA. Ancient extinctions were not moral judgments. They were events indifferent to desire, fairness, or foresight. Humanity's crises, however, carry moral weight. Climate change, habitat destruction, and the potential for species collapse are not accidental. They are the results of conscious choices. The contrast between natural and human-driven crises highlights responsibility. Knowledge does not merely inform us. It obliges reflection and action. The story of the Cenozoic becomes a mirror, reflecting the stakes of consciousness, foresight, and decision-making. Consider the paradox of power and fragility. Earth survived asteroid strikes, supervolcanoes, and glacial cycles. Yet life's continuity always hung in delicate balance. Humanity possesses tools to anticipate and prevent catastrophe. Yet these same tools, technology, industry, and environmental manipulation carry risks that could destabilize systems evolved over millions of years. The Cenozoic teaches that survival is not guaranteed. It is provisional, contingent upon adaptation, awareness, and care. We are participants in a narrative far larger than ourselves, responsible for shaping the next act with knowledge that no other species has wielded. The evolution of intelligence and consciousness adds another layer to the lesson. Life's capacity to reflect, plan, and imagine is a rare outcome of millions of years of trial, error, and adaptation. Consciousness emerged in response to environmental pressures, social dynamics, and stochastic events, granting humans the ability to understand and influence the planet in ways previously unimaginable. Yet this power comes with paradoxical tension. The same cognitive tools that enable stewardship also generate hubris, overconsumption, and ecological imbalance. Awareness amplifies responsibility, and reflection demands humility. Patterns of catastrophe and recovery offer guidance. The Cenozoic demonstrates that life flourishes when flexibility and diversity are preserved. Ecosystems with multiple pathways for energy flow and adaptation recover faster from disruptions. Species that innovate survive, while those rigidly specialized falter. For humanity, these patterns underscore the value of ecological diversity, technological adaptability, and social resilience. Science reveals mechanisms. Speculation illuminates purpose. The interplay between evidence and imagination invites both strategic planning and philosophical reflection. How do we honor life's history while safeguarding its future? The narrative also highlights the temporal scale of responsibility. Geological epochs unfold over millions of years. Evolutionary processes move slowly, measured in generations. Human consciousness, however, perceives time in years, decades, and centuries. The contrast between deep time and immediate perception challenges us to think beyond immediate survival, to anticipate consequences for generations yet unborn. The Cenozoic provides perspective. Extinction and adaptation are the rule, not the exception. To act wisely is to align with patterns of resilience forged over epochs. Rather than short-term expedients, Cenozoic lessons resonate in unexpected ways. The rise of mammals and birds demonstrates opportunity arising from disruption. Recovery from past catastrophes relied on both chance and preparation. Species that survived had traits conducive to adaptation. Yet environmental contingency also dictated outcomes. Humanity occupies a similar space. Our innovations, foresight, and cultural systems provide resilience. But randomness, cosmic, environmental, or social, remains a factor. The interplay of preparation and uncertainty, evolution and contingency, shapes both past and potential futures. Philosophically, the Cenozoic story invites reflection on purpose, continuity, and humility. Life's trajectory is neither preordained nor chaotic. It is the emergent product of countless interactions, pressures, and accidents. Conscious beings, capable of observing this trajectory, occupy a singular position in the universe. We can comprehend history, anticipate consequences, and contemplate meaning. The history of life on Earth becomes not only a scientific record, but a guide for ethical and existential reflection. Resilience is possible, but only when awareness, imagination, and responsibility converge. Returning to the theme of rebirth, the Cenozoic teaches that catastrophe can coexist with creativity, loss with opportunity. Ecosystems reorganized after mass extinctions. Evolutionary dead ends gave rise to flourishing diversity, and life repeatedly found new paths in response to constraint. Human civilization now participates in similar dynamics on a conscious scale. We can either emulate nature's balance, adapting, diversifying, and restoring, or impose disruptions that echo catastrophes from which life once struggled to recover. Our awareness transforms what was once blind resilience into intentional stewardship. Legacy extends to consciousness itself. Evolution produced beings capable of wonder, reflection, and ethical reasoning. Humanity can perceive both microscopic neural networks and the expanse of the cosmos, bridging scales that ancient life could never comprehend. This dual perspective, intimate and cosmic, reinforces awe while demanding responsibility. Scientific evidence grounds us in reality. Speculative reflection connects us to meaning and purpose. Together, they form a framework for understanding our role as conscious participants in life's ongoing narrative. Contemplating extinction, resilience, and complexity also frames contemporary challenges. Climate shifts, habitat loss, and technological upheaval present novel crises analogous to ancient catastrophes. Unlike the Cenozoic, these are consequences of conscious action. Humanity's trajectory is not predetermined. It is the product of choice, guided by understanding, ethics, and foresight. The lessons of the past are mirrors. Adapt, diversify, and recognize contingency or risk repeating patterns of collapse. Science quantifies risk. Philosophy demands reflection on value and purpose. The interplay creates a narrative both urgent and inspiring. The story of the Cenozoic thus becomes an invitation. It invites awe at life's resilience, curiosity about contingency, and humility in the face of cosmic scale. It reminds us that survival is provisional, complexity is fragile, and consciousness is extraordinary. Fossils, isotopes, and ancient landscapes provide empirical grounding. Imagination and philosophy allow us to inhabit these events, reflecting on our own emergence, responsibility, and potential. Life's history is both a record and a guide, offering lessons encoded in time itself. In closing, the Cenozoic frames human existence within a continuum of adaptation and opportunity. Past extinctions highlight fragility. Evolutionary recoveries highlight resilience. Consciousness grants foresight. Complexity creates both potential and risk. Humanity is now at a juncture comparable to those faced by ancient ecosystems after catastrophe. Our choices will determine whether the next chapter reflects collapse or renewal, loss or flourishing, stagnation or evolution. The narrative of life thus converges with the narrative of human responsibility. Rebirth is the final theme, echoing the documentary's opening. Life persisted, diversified, and flourished after the extinction of dinosaurs, revealing that catastrophe can seed opportunity and fragility can foster ingenuity. Humanity inherits both the legacy and the lesson: to observe, to understand, and to act with foresight. The past is not merely a record. It is a guide, urging reflection on the consequences of our actions, the ethics of stewardship, and the potential to shape the future. The history of the Cenozoic becomes a lens through which we perceive our own cosmic and existential significance. And so, as the story of life continues, the Cenozoic stands as both chronicle and parable, a testament to resilience, a record of chance, and a blueprint for conscious beings capable of shaping their destiny. Science, philosophy, and imagination converge, leaving viewers with a sense of wonder, humility, and continuity. The past illuminates the present. Awareness transforms insight into action. Life, after all, persists not only through adaptation, but through reflection, responsibility, and a conscious embrace of possibility.